opening in 2016, Mako instantly became one of the most regarded hypercoasters by Bolliger and Mabillard. I have been very eager to ride this roller coaster, and in 2021 proved to be my year. Featuring a 200-foot drop, 4,760 feet of track, and speeds up to 73 miles per hour, Mako lands somewhere in the middle lower end in size when compared to other hypercoasters by B&M. But if there's one thing that we all know, size doesn't always matter. Presentation. Nestled in a tight sliver of land located right next to the shark encounter, the entrance to Mako is very well done. The roller coaster roars over and around this portion of the park. The music changes every time the coaster approaches, warning those on the ground of an impending shark attack. The queue is nothing special, just some nice foliage scattered about to look at, but we're not here for the queue, but the ride. The station has a neat little screen display above the train. It changes from blue to pink whenever a train is pulling in and out of the station. This screen is designed to look like an aquarium. As you ascend the lift, epic-style music is playing, pumping you up for your adventure you're about to take. The roller coaster itself is very hard to see when you are standing in the park. It travels behind the park and wraps around the lake. While riding, the lake setting is very nice and works well with the shark theming. The ending of the ride, which I mentioned already, is when you wrap around the ride entrance. It is the best themed portion of the attraction. When comparing Mako to other SeaWorld attractions, I would consider presentation to be on point, earning a perfect 10 rating. Without being nitpicky, there's really nothing else I would do to improve this category. Ride intensity. When rating roller coasters that focus on airtime, my ride intensity score is always the hardest to judge. Out of all the hypers that I've ridden by B&M, in forms of positive G-forces, this has to be the weakest. There's usually a helix or some kind of maneuver that causes me to gray out, but not on Mako. With that said, Mako is also the most intense B&M I've ridden when talking about airtime. The ride starts off by pulling out of the station and working your way up the ride's largest drop. For those sitting in the back, be prepared for some amazing ejector airtime as you are pulled over the 200-foot plunge. The coaster then ascends into a giant left-hand overbank turn. After the turn, it's back to airtime with the ride's longest moment of sustained airtime. When I was riding in the front, I counted over 4 seconds of me floating out of my seat. Mako now ascends into a 180-degree turn, heading you right into another airtime hill. This one has a trim brake which does slow the train down, but not enough to ruin any airtime. If anything, you won't get any ejector airtime, but I still managed to float out of my seat during this hill regardless if I was up front or in the back of the train. The train now enters an airtime hill that ends with a bank turn to the right. It's a nice moment that takes me by surprise every time. After the turn, it's a high-speed airtime hill. This airtime moment stays low to the ground, which provides a shorter pop of air, but with stronger forces. Surprisingly, I didn't consider this to be the strongest moment of ejector on the ride. That moment belongs to the first drop. The mid-course brake run really slows the train down, which at first I thought it was going to ruin the rest of the ride, but thankfully it doesn't. The coaster finishes off with one more small airtime hill, a turn to the right, followed by a 180-degree turn to the left, which will drop you down close to the water. The train skims along the water for a second before rising up into a left-hand turn into the brakes. When factoring in all the airtime moments and lack of other strong G-forces, I don't think Mako deserves a 10 rating for ride intensity, but a score of 8 seems reasonable. Fun factor. Did I mention how great the airtime is? Because it's fantastic. Every hill, drop is loaded with airtime, including some ejector airtime as well. It may not deliver airtime that is strong like on an RMC, but I don't think that matters. The quality and quantity seems to outdo any stronger forces I experience on majority of hybrid coasters. Hyper roller coasters are supposed to be about sustained airtime, and that's exactly what Mako delivers. I was pleasantly surprised how long some of its airtime moments last. The first drop, first airtime hill, second airtime hill, and that speed hill all bring that point home. After getting multiple rides in the front row and back rows, I think the front row is my favorite place to sit overall, but the back row delivers that legendary first drop. Honestly, you can't go wrong with any row, because the airtime will still be amazing. I think we all know Fun Factor will be walking away with a 10 rating. Originality. B&M Hypers are nothing new. With the first model being constructed in 1999, the concept has stayed relatively similar throughout the years. They have changed some things up, like ridding the pre-drop and shortening the trains, but for the most part, the layouts have stayed somewhat similar. Mako follows the traditional B&M layout with a couple unique aspects to this model. First would be the speed airtime hill. I believe Mako is the first to feature this low-to-the-ground airtime hill. Finally, the finale of this roller coaster is kind of its own layout. The coaster transitions from airtime into twisty sections. Most hypercoasters by B&M end the ride with a few bunny hills, but Mako mixes it up by making this coaster look intimidating as it wraps around the entrance in midway. Even though the concept isn't original, the amount of airtime that this roller coaster delivers is unlike majority of their former designs. Basically, Mako perfects the hypercoaster design. With the addition of the twisted ending and speed hill, I think Mako earns a perfect 10 rating for originality. Ride smoothness. Mako is only 5 years old, so I wouldn't expect major rattles, but Mako is still butter smooth. This is one of the smoothest hyper roller coasters I've been on. The ride is comfy, especially with their signature clamshell restraints. There's really not much here to say other than that the ride is still glossy smooth. So sit back and enjoy one of the best hyper coasters on the planet. Mako earns a perfect 10 rating for ride smoothness. Okay, the final score comes to 9.6, which is an excellent score. Personally, I was doing everything that I could to make this a perfect 10 rating, but that ride intensity category was my kryptonite. In my opinion, I don't think hypercoasters are overly intense coasters, even with great ejector airtime. Mako is about as intense I'd expect a hypercoaster, but again, that's not what the focus of this model is about. Mako is all about the airtime and it delivers on that and then some. My personal score is going to be a 10. This is one of my favorite roller coasters of all time. If there's one thing Mako has proven to me is how much of a B&M fanboy I'm turning into. The only way you can improve on Mako is by building a longer and faster hypercoaster, but since your window of height is between 200 and 299 feet, there's really only so much that you can do. This may not be the best roller coaster in the world, but honestly, if you ask me which roller coaster I wanted for Christmas, Steel Vengeance or Mako, I'm gonna go with a shark. Now, some of this could be that new coaster smell that's making me elevate my score, but after getting multiple rides in the front, middle, and back rows, I feel confident with my score I provided. Well, that concludes my review of Mako. Do you think I gave this coaster a fair score? Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please click that like button and subscribe. That way you continue to get great content brought to you by Extreme Thrills.